YouTube, been here. Well, a while back I put out a video asking for people's questions, things that they wanted to know more about. One of the responses that I got was somebody asked, have I ever had to go by another state's extradition laws? If you don't know what extradition is if you get if you're facing charges in the state of Mississippi or any state and you decide you're going to run off to another state, well, Mississippi can have you extradited back. So different states have different laws concerning that. Now, it doesn't matter if you get picked up by the police, if you get picked up by a bail enforcement agent, it's still an extradition no matter how you look at it. So there's some gray areas, but the cut and dry is before we go to another state, we research their laws. You know, I'm up to date on most states' laws, especially states I've had to go to, but laws change every year. Legislation gets passed, and believe me, legislation is always being passed in regards to bail bondsmen and bounty hunters and things of that nature. This situation over in Texas at the car dealership, I'm sure that there's going to be a flurry of legislation coming behind that. I haven't looked into it yet, but I will be following that. So, Texas is a good example. Say one of my people over here that I got out of jail on a DUI, which in the state of Mississippi is in the big picture a relatively small bond. Say their DUI first is usually about a $1,500 bond. Somebody pays $150 plus a $50 processing fee to get out of jail to a bondsman. So they're out of pocket $200, and the bondsman is responsible for that $1,500. All right. So let's say they run to Texas. Well, we can go to Texas and get them. We can go anywhere and get them. But the question is it worth going to get them or not? So let's say we got a good solid address on somebody that we have out on bond for DUI, and we do the math, and it's only going to cost us about $200 in fuel and a day and a half of our time to go get them. Well, we're going to go get them. Well, in Texas, you have to take anybody that you want to extradite, you have to take them before a judge magistrate, and they have to tell the judge magistrate whether or not they want to fight extradition. So at that point, they would tell the judge magistrate. I've never had one say yes, they wanted to fight extradition, because there's no point in it. There's no point in fighting it. You're coming back whether you want to or not, unless you have a high-dollar lawyer that can make a compelling case why you shouldn't have to. But if you say, I want to fight extradition, I don't want to go back with this guy, then the judge at that point has to make the decision on whether or not to incarcerate you awaiting an extradition hearing, or do what's called a fugitive bond. So they would call another bondsman in the state of Texas. That bondsman would come up to the jail and write a fugitive bond, letting that person out from the custody of Texas into their custody until the hearing. So it can get messy, it can get complicated. I've never had one go down that road. I've always had people just come with me, say, okay, you know, the gig is up. Well, that's on a misdemeanor. On a felony, it's even harder to fight the extradition. So Have I personally had to deal with it? No. Have I gone to states, other states, and brought people back with me? Yes. Many, many times. There's some other loopholes, not loopholes, barriers. There's some other barriers. For instance, the state of Illinois does not allow, nor does it recognize bounty hunters, bail bondsmen, bail enforcement. Their bail system is state run. They do not recognize commercial bail. Now, that's not to say that if you go to Illinois that a bail bondsman can't touch you, because there is a process for that, and it has been done. It's been done many times, which basically you locate the person, you go to local authorities, have local authorities take them into their custody, then make arrangements with your state or the jurisdiction in your state, which mine is Mississippi. I would call the DA's office and say, hey, look, you know, we're having so-and-so picked up. I need you to make sure that when they call, you approve the extradition. Because Mississippi has a 300-mile extradition limit. They won't come get you for most things outside of 300 miles. 300 miles from the court, not from the state line. So that puts a huge limitation on things. So you call the DA, and the DA, hey, you know, I need you to approve this extradition, because in Mississippi, we're responsible. The bondsman is responsible for the cost of getting that person back here. It doesn't matter if the sheriff's department sends a couple of deputies up in an airplane and have them fly back. We got to pay for that cost. We got to pay for what the law says is reasonable cost. So we have to pay their salaries, 2 deputies, salaries for the day, or 2 days, however long it takes, their airfare, 2 airfares up, 3 airfares back, 3 meals a day, you know, reasonable cost. Do some sheriff's departments try to inflate that a little bit? I've heard of it happening. I've never had it happen to me. What happens most of the time here, though, is they hire a private transport to bring that person back from where they're at. There's private transports all over the country that do nothing but transport inmates. And yes, I know they mess up. You see them in the news from time to time. They let somebody escape. You know, that happens to deputies and jailers too. You know, it just happens. Anyway, Kentucky's another one of those states. Kentucky, they do not like bondsmen. I don't know why. You would think that would be a state that embraced commercial bail bonding, but no, they don't. You can't just go to Kentucky and get somebody. It's the same process. You have to have them picked up locally. You have to have them extradited back. So now you got it. It costs roughly about $2 grand to have somebody extradited back, pretty much anywhere in the country. So you have to weigh the cost. Am I going to have the $1,500 DUI, $1,500 DUI extradited back for $2,000? No, I'm not going to. But am I going to have the $30,000 bond extradited back for $2 grand? Yeah, absolutely. Another caveat to that is they're not going to extradite a misdemeanor. I don't think they're allowed to extradite a misdemeanor. I'm not sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that you can't extradite misdemeanors across state lines, only felonies. So to protect ourselves in those situations, every bond we write, every person we get out of jail, we should have a solid indemnifier. The common phrase for a indemnifier is a co-signer. You go to the bank, your credit isn't good enough, so you get somebody to co-sign the loan for you. They are not the same thing, but to give you a common knowledge reference. An indemnifier is another person that is signing on behalf of John Doe to the bondsman to get John Doe out of jail. That way, if John Doe runs off, I don't have to spend the $1,500 or the $2,000 or whatever it might be. I can go after the indemnifier. I can go after John Doe's big brother that decided he had enough confidence in John to get him out of jail. So that's another kind of safety net for us. It kind of sucks. I hate going after indemnifiers because, and when I say go after, I mean civilly in court. We cannot arrest an indemnifier because John Doe missed court. I mean, this isn't the 1700s. Things don't work like that anymore. But what we can do is we can go after him financially. We can put a lien on his house. We can garnish his paychecks. We can make his life very uncomfortable in order to get the money that we had to pay the court back. I hope that answers your question. I know I kind of went off the rails a little bit with it, but there's just so much that goes into what we do, and there's so many, it's like a roller coaster ride at a park, you know. There's just so many ups and downs and what ifs, and well, if it's this way, then we can do this. If it's that way, then we can't do this, but we can do this. It's just how the business is, and the more experience you get in the business, the longer you've been in it, the easier it is to navigate those waters. Just to clear up a couple of points, when I said that misdemeanors can't be extradited back across state lines, I meant by the courts. Bondsmen can bring misdemeanors back across state lines. And also, when I said I've never had to deal with extradition, I've never had to deal with somebody fighting extradition. So rather than remake the whole video, I thought I would clear those 2 points up here at the end. Anyway, that's all for now. Ben the Bondsman, signing out.